The U.S. Secretary of Defense orders a guided missile submarine to the Middle East. We have the latest developments from the region. And Tom Cruise gives the Paris Olympics a Hollywood ending as we look toward Los Angeles and the 2028 Summer Games. The Morning Rundown starts now.
From the Straight Arrow News Studio, bringing the stories that matter to you from across the United States and around the world. This is the Morning Rundown.
Today is Monday, August 12th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kara Rucker. There have been new developments over the weekend in the Israel-Hamas war. The U.S. is sending a nuclear submarine into the region. Israel is expanding its evacuation orders, and Hamas's new leader gives his terms for a ceasefire deal. We'll start with the U.S. ordering the deployment of a nuclear-powered submarine with cruise missiles, the USS Georgia, into the Middle East. The movement of U.S. missile submarines is rarely revealed publicly, typically operating in near-complete secrecy. But the move comes as Israel is anticipating a potentially large-scale attack by Iran in the next few days. The Israeli military has ordered more evacuation orders from part of a humanitarian safe zone it had set up in southwestern Gaza, saying they now plan to expand its fighting here because of indications Hamas terrorists have a significant presence there, now living among civilians. These orders come a day after Israel struck a school-turned-shelter that the Hamas-run health ministry says killed at least 80 people. Israel saying again that Hamas fighters were hiding among civilians at the school compound. Meanwhile, Hamas's new leader said Sunday there would be no new negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza this week unless mediators from the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt revert back to a plan that would see a truce in the war. In a CBS interview on Sunday, President Biden said he believes a ceasefire deal is still possible before he leaves office. Other news to come out of President Biden's first interview since pulling out of the 2024 race. Biden explained a big reason why he made that decision was so the Democratic Party could focus on what he says is the real issue, defeating former President Donald Trump. In an interview with CBS Sunday morning, the president laid out his thought process.
Polls we had showed that it was a neck-and-neck race, would have been down to the wire. But what happened was a number of my Democratic colleagues in the House and Senate thought that I was going to hurt them in the races. And I was concerned if I stayed in the race, that would be the topic. You'd be interviewing me about why did Nancy Pelosi say, why did someone, and I thought it'd be a real distraction. Although it's a great honor being president, I think I have an obligation to the country to do the most important thing to do, and that is we must defeat Trump.
During that interview, President Biden said he'll campaign for Democratic candidate Vice President Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania, a key battleground state in the election. He did not, however, specify when that would be. Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance had multiple one-on-one interviews air on Sunday. In separate interviews, he spoke with CNN's Dana Bash, CBS's Margaret Brennan, and ABC's Jonathan Karl about former President Donald Trump's plan should he be elected again in 2024. On CBS's Face the Nation, Vance defended recent comments by the former president, indicating he may be willing to roll back access to the abortion pill. Vance saying Trump wants abortion-related decisions to be left to the states. On CNN, Vance commented on Vice President Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, saying he's the one being weird after that term has been used by the Democratic Party to describe the Republican ticket. And Vance took the media spotlight as a moment to discuss Trump's plans for mass deportations.
And I think that you take a sequential approach to it. You are going to have to deport some people. If you're not willing to deport a lot of people, you're not willing to have a border when there are 20 million illegal aliens in our country.
10 to 15 million people, this is like, I mean...
Well, John, I think that's the wrong attitude to take of it. Okay, so
you go knock on doors and ask people for their papers.
Again, but let me finish. I think this is the wrong attitude towards it, right? There's 20 million people here illegally. You start with what's achievable. You do that. and then you go on to what's achievable from there. I think that if you deport a lot of violent criminals, and frankly, if you make it harder to hire illegal labor, which undercuts the wages of American workers, I think you go a lot of the way to solving the illegal immigration problem. But look, President Trump is absolutely right. You cannot have a border unless you're willing to deport some people. I think it's interesting that people focus on, well, how do you deport 18 million people? Let's start with 1 million. That's where Kamala Harris has failed, and then we can go from there.
Vance will be campaigning for the Republican ticket on Wednesday, making a stop in Michigan, a key swing state, while Trump is set to address the economy in North Carolina. There are new concerns this morning over foreign interference in the U.S. election after the Trump campaign said over the weekend that it was hacked by who they believe to be Iranian hackers. Both Politico and The Washington Post reported receiving internal Trump documents, including research on Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, from an anonymous email account. News of a campaign hack comes just as Microsoft said on Friday it discovered evidence that Iranian hackers targeted an email account of a campaign official back in June. While Microsoft didn't specify what campaign was impacted in their announcement, a person familiar to the talks told The Washington Post it was Trump's campaign targeted. The extent of any sort of hack is not currently known, but the Post said they received hundreds of pages labeled as confidential. This comes just as former President Trump will be sitting down for an interview with Elon Musk tonight. And now to some controversy to close out the Summer Olympics in Paris. USA Gymnastics challenging the ruling of Olympic officials that called for Team USA's Jordan Childs to return her bronze medal she won during the individual floor exercise final last week. Childs was awarded the medal after her coach submitted a review of the judges' scores. However, the decision this weekend by the Court of Arbitration for Sport said Childs' coach had asked for the review 4 seconds after a 1-minute deadline to submit such a request had expired, per competition rules, meaning Romania would have won the bronze. But on Sunday, USA Gymnastics fired back at that ruling, saying it has submitted time-stamped video evidence showing the request was made within that 1 minute. Olympic officials have yet to respond to the latest twist in this gymnastics saga. Finally this morning, as we mentioned, this weekend saw the Paris Summer Games come to a close. Team USA leading the way with the most total medals, 126, and tying China for the most gold medals with 40 each. And as Paris marked the conclusion of its Olympics, it was up to the next host city, Los Angeles, to close out the show in style. And LA brought what else but a Hollywood ending. Actor Tom Cruise channeling his Top Gun and Mission Impossible roles by jumping off the stadium's roof in Paris. He was then handed the Olympic flag by Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass and Olympic great Simone Biles to take back to LA. The closing ceremony also saw the musician Her singing the national anthem, as well as performances by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, and Billie Eilish. Coincidentally, Team USA taking home 126 medals is the most since the U.S. won 174 in 1984, the last time the Olympics were played in Los Angeles. These are your top stories for this Monday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, I'm Kara Rucker. Have a great day.